to meet you, Charlie. Hey, Jack. Nice to meet you. Sure.
Thank you, everybody. I think that's probably the grandest entrance I'll ever make, so I'm glad you were all here to witness that. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about Canoo now for the next 20-25 minutes. We will be doing Q&A at the end, so start thinking about questions, and I'll call that out later. I want to start by talking about the car, of course, because it's sitting right there, and as remarkable as it looks on the outside, I got to assure everybody it looks even more interesting on the inside, and I hope you all come up and take a look at it once we're done talking, but not until we're done talking. Tell me a little bit about the theory behind the car, some of the ideas and the concepts that we see demonstrated right here.
Yeah, I hope you had a nice ride in the car.
I did,
because
nice.
This is the first time that we show our Canoo here. And yes, of course, the design of the car is actually done in a way that it fulfills all the need for an urban environment. We wanted to make sure that the car looks like an EV right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So there's no need that an EV has an engine compartment or a luggage compartment. So we choose a mono volume. So you see the car is pretty much symmetrical. And the car is huge from inside, but not so big from the outside. So we have an interior that is as big as a big Suburban. And you could experience it, 7 seats, and the outside of the vehicle is as small as a compact car. So we think it's the ideal design for an urban environment, and of course we wanted to introduce a vehicle that is reasonably priced.
And though it looks obviously very futuristic, there are some kind of throwback effects like the pop-up and vent windows on top and stuff like that. So it seems like there's some interesting thoughts going on in terms of the features of the car more so than just the aesthetics of the car.
From the aesthetics, as you can see, it is symmetrical. So what we also want to bring across that this car is ready for future autonomous driving. So it shows you that maybe in the future where there is no steering wheel in the car anymore, that you as a customer, you don't care which direction the car drives you. It should represent actually a loft on wheels. And this is what we wanted to bring across. And technically, the car is pretty much prepared for that.
But the car will not be autonomous at launch. And indeed, we had a very kind human being to drive us up on stage today. And that's the plan going forward for the launch of the car,
yes,
right?
It is not autonomous from the start because, as I said, it will be reasonably priced. So we have to make sure that the costs are okay. And the other thing is we have in the car the first steer-by-wire. So that means if you look at the car later and the audience has the chance to look at it, there's no mechanical connection between the steering wheel and the wheels on the ground. So for us, this is already a preparation towards autonomous driving. Removing the steering wheel and the steering column isn't a problem, but the steering rack is also prepared for a dual power mode. So we need to have this redundancy because it's required by law.
And that creates a very interesting architecture up front, both because of the skateboard battery pack, everything is down low in the car, but the front is open and airy. In fact, you can see right through the nose of the car, which is a very different sort of experience than you're used to, and a very open dashboard, which is very different as well.
Yeah, it is, because since all the components of an EV are actually smaller but very powerful, we could really package everything what usually is in the cabin into what we call the skateboard or the rolling chassis. And this was the idea right from the start, because we could free up all interior and get rid of all unnecessary parts that usually sit in the cabin, because they are all incorporated into the skateboard, including our cooling and heating system. So that gave us the chance to remove a firewall because it's not needed. And with removing the firewall and steer-by-wire, we could open up this big window in the front where you can easily see the road. It lets light into the vehicle, but at the same time, this car is pretty easy to park and to maneuver, because what you see is definitely the end of the front.
And beyond the overall architecture, there's some very interesting design cues on the interior. I'm a big fan of architectural design, and on the inside, the furniture in there even looks like something you'd expect to find in a high-end loft or something like that.
Exactly, so that's why I mentioned it's an urban loft on wheels, and our designers did a great job to bring that across. We are not talking about traditional car seats. Mm-hmm. So we have, I would call it a sofa in the rear, and mid-century chairs in the front, because we also wanted to bring across it's about space, about a living room, and not about speed.
mid-century modern in your car. That's pretty cool. But there's also some interesting ideas there in terms of this being a shared car and the ability of personalization. You've got these things along the side that you can clip and hang things onto to personalize the car a little bit. I've never seen anything like that before either.
Yeah, that's what we call, and if we open the door later, you can see we call that a pegboard. You can personalize the interior. You can put on the pegboard whatever you want as a customer and not what the car manufacturer tells you is needed. And this is a nice feature. The other thing is also that the car is pretty much prepared also for ride-hailing, because we have only best seats in that car. The rear seat is also a best seat. You are not squeezed into a rear seat of a traditional car.
Yep.
And the traditional cars, they usually have the best seat behind the steering wheel. And for ride-hailing car, you have to have the best seat for a customer.
And the architecture of the seating is very different in the back as well, as you mentioned. It's kind of this bowed shape to the seating. What sort of complications does that present when it comes to safety? Because I know you're aiming for 5-star Euro NCAP and everything else in this car.
It is actually not a safety risk. It's quite the opposite. We have 3 seats in the rear, and rather you sit like this or you sit straight. You can do that in other seats as well. Mm-hmm. There are 3 seat belts in the rear. We have 2 seats attached to the door, so side-facing seats. So they are equipped with a lap belt as well, and of course 2 seats in the front. The other thing what we are offering, if the car stands still, you move the 2 seats in the front forward, the backrest forward, and then we have a jump seat where you can easily have a conference with 7 people in the rear of the vehicle.
And an increasingly big part of safety these days is not just crash protection, but also crash avoidance, active safety systems. And it sounds like there'll be some interesting driver monitoring here as well as advanced active safety. Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, of course, there's active safety as well. So the car will be equipped with 5 radar sensors. We have 12 ultrasonic sensors and, of course, 7 cameras. 1 camera is also inboard facing. That makes it easier in autonomous mode to recognize if the driver pays attention or not. If he doesn't pay attention, you get a signal. If you pay attention, you don't. So these are the things that come with the start of the vehicle, and I would consider this a level 2 plus or 2.5 autonomous driving.
And that goes beyond even just prompting the driver to pay attention, but you might even not give a blind spot warning if you notice that the driver has actually already checked the blind spot. That's something interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to do, because it's sometimes annoying, and we see in today's cars some of the drivers, they switch the systems off, which was not the idea when they got invented. And in our case, we just watch the driver, and if he pays attention, there's no alarm. If he does not,
yeah, even the best safety system is not going to keep you very safe if you turn it off. Now, normally I would ask you, when can I buy a car like this? But of course, the answer is a little bit complicated because I won't be able to buy a car like this, right?
So this car is not for sale, so it doesn't have a sales price. So we want to go subscription right from the start. And we offer membership. And through one app, you as a customer, you can apply to the club. And we take care pretty much about everything that comes along with the traditional process of buying or leasing a car. We go also membership because if you look outside and you see all the cars on the road or on the parking lot today, 75% of those cars are leased anyway. So people tend not to put a huge amount of money on the table to own a vehicle anymore. And we thought we can push that even further by offering a no time limit subscription. You as a customer, you can keep the car as long as you want, but there's no time limit. If you move from one city to the other, you just give it back.
Do you have any thoughts in terms of upgrades, being able to trade your car in, being able to move up to a different model, assuming there is a different model to come?
Yeah, since we have also the advantage to depreciate the real value of the car over a longer lifetime, over a longer period, you as a customer have the chance either to keep it or to bring it back, because we incorporated into our business case 2 life cycle impulses. So that means the first one after 3 years, the second one after 6 years.
Okay.
We use that to refurbish the car, but at the same time upgrade it if a level of autonomy 3 or 4 is available for a reasonable price. We can easily upgrade the vehicle because all the infrastructure, all the computing power, and the domain controllers in the car are designed to be easily upgradable.
Beyond upgrades, what kind of refurbishment would you expect from a car that's coming into 3 years?
It depends on the usage of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So some cars are heavily used, so it's today in every leasing model as well. So you can see that you might change the seat cover, or maybe the carpet, or the headliner, or whatever is necessary. And this is what we will do with the refurbishment.
And would those cars then be provided as new, or would it be like a discounted rate for that?
After a certain age of the vehicle,
Yeah.
we have really the opportunity to lower the monthly subscription and offer a car that is renewed for a lower monthly fee.
We've seen a lot of manufacturers trying to make the subscription model work. Booked by Cadillac, Care by Volvo, things like that. Different approaches from different manufacturers, but it doesn't seem like any of them have really kind of cracked that solution. What makes this different, and how is this going to be successful?
In our case, there are a couple of things that we do different. Since we start from scratch, we don't have a dealership, so we also have no heritage. And the subscription models you see today, they come on top of an existing dealership, they come on top of an existing leasing infrastructure, and this is why they are quite expensive.
Interesting.
And in our case, we save money in a couple of different ways. The first is our architecture is designed in a way that the development costs are low. We go asset light, for instance, using contract manufacture. So we are not investing in our own production facility, and the car outer skin is thermoplastic. So that means there is for the production no paint booth required, and the paint booth, by the way, is the biggest investment in a production company. And the other thing is that we can, without a dealership, we can really offer the car over a longer period of time, and really the residual value of the car will be actually elongated over a couple of years rather than a 3 years lease contract. If you have a 3-year lease contract, the traditional model, you have to calculate all the depreciation of the vehicle into the first 3 years, which is huge, especially when it comes to an EV. Some EVs, their value drops after the first 3 years by more than 50%.
Yeah.
In our case, we have a way longer depreciation time, which is a couple of years longer, and that makes it much easier to depreciate the value, and we are having no used cars because we refurbish the cars and use them again.
That's very interesting and totally different than what we've seen before. That sounds great. In kind of the announce post for Canoo on Medium, the total cost of ownership was compared to a luxury SUV. Can you give me some idea of what sort of consumers you'll be targeting with this initial release? What sort of things that you think consumers will be looking for in a product like this?
It is actually, we are looking for consumers that cover pretty much the whole range of age, younger consumers and older ones. So the only thing what we are doing different, we designed the car for the urban environment. So that means we are really targeting the city dwellers rather than people in the Midwest. So that means also we are going to introduce the vehicle city by city, not country by country. That is also one of the ideas why we can really conservatively start and testing how the audience reacts to our subscription model. And we always wanted to do that right from the beginning because 75% of all EVs are sold or leased today in, I would say in the US, in 8 to 10 cities in the US. So it's the East Coast and the West Coast. And this is our focus. And these people that live there, they are probably happy to have such a car on a time limited subscription rate.
And going with the subscription model means you also dodged some somewhat onerous legislation that we have in the U.S. when it comes to dealership laws. But will people be able to go and do a test drive of a Canoo or be able to go to a showroom and see something like that?
Of course. So what we definitely do, we run through internet, so direct sales. So you can see it on our website, of course. And if you want to have such a car, we make sure that the car comes to your place, to your office or to your home. We pick also the car up for service, and we do all the maintenance. Everything will be handled by us. You as a customer, you subscribe once, and all the things customers don't like to do, we are handling.
Now, launching in cities, of course, gives you high density of population as well, which helps out on the ride-sharing side of things. You guys have James Cox from Uber working to help to develop that. How does that factor into the ownership model for this? We talked about the design being optimized for ride-sharing, but in terms of the ownership experience and paying for a car like this, how does ride-sharing factor into that?
Yeah, the ride share or ride hailing is definitely a topic that we considered right from the start, because if you see the interior of the vehicle, you see that it's pretty roomy.
Yeah.
In the same coin, it is not too big. And for ride hailing, it's actually the ideal car because we have very comfortable seats for the customer. And even today, all the Ubers, Didis, Lyft drivers, they maybe lease their cars, but they have to lease the cars that exist today. If they see such a car, I'm pretty sure this is an attractive vehicle for all the Uber drivers. And the other thing is, it is not a luxury car, and it's not a car that is priced above $80,000 or more.
Now, you mentioned manufacturing. Not only will you not be selling the car, you won't be building the car either. What does outsourcing look like when it comes to the production of a car like this?
The first thing when it comes to production, you have to have a design that is easy to manufacture. So therefore, we invited from day one a contract manufacturer that helps us from engineering to design all the components and systems in a way that they are easy to manufacture, also at high speed and higher volume. And the contract manufacturers, they are used to build cars in high volume and good quality. And for us, it was definitely a decision we made from the start that we want to have an experienced contract manufacturer that has proven to build good quality cars. And this is what we are doing. And we also do not want to invest in a huge manufacturing site.
Can you name names? Who's building the cars?
Unfortunately, not yet, but I can say that one of the contract manufacturers that started with us at the beginning, they're helping us building our prototypes right now while I'm speaking.
And this, I've been in a lot of concept cars. This is clearly post the concept phase. This is actually a reasonably well-built car. You can tell from the door hinges, you can tell from the structure inside. How close to production is this?
Actually, this car represents for us a concept car, and it's not a show car, because what we want to achieve is that the production car pretty much looks the same as this car. To give you a figure, maybe 95%. So it will not be a surprise if you see the production car that it looks different. It will exactly look like this one. And if you see our prototypes maybe in the next couple of days running around the West Coast, you will easily recognize that it looks pretty much the same.
It'll be pretty hard to camouflage that and make it look like something
Definitely.
else.
There's no need, because there's no predecessor.
And will you be working with multiple manufacturing partners for different regions as you're rolling out, or do you plan on having them built in a single location and then kind of shipping them globally?
We start pretty conservative, so we are not claiming to produce thousands of cars in a short time. So we have a very conservative ramp-up curve, and we are going, since we are an LA-based company, we are going to start producing the vehicle in the US.
That's great.
And then, of course, later you can consider to go to the biggest EV market, which is after the US, China.
There's another company that uses outsourcing for service production, that's BMW, and I know that you spent a long time at BMW. To start with, what's it like to work at a fledgling company like this compared to a massive, well-established organization like BMW? What's the transition been like?
Yeah, the one thing is we are much faster because we don't have huge committees to report to, so we can make quick decisions with a small team. And of course, as a startup, you can take some risks as well, because you don't have the responsibility to make sure that 50 plants all over the world have production. So that's why these big companies are slower, and this is a huge advantage in a startup. And since we are all part of the startup and owners of the startup, we make decisions very fast.
So you have some skin in the game, as we would say. Basically, you're committed to the product.
Exactly, absolutely.
And it's what, less than 2 years from basically design to this phase right now for the car, is that right?
Yeah, this is something you can only do, I guess, with a startup company and, of course, with the right team. So we are lucky we have a group of A players in our team, and we took full advantage of all the simulation tools that are especially available on the West Coast. So people in our team, they are used to use open source platform tools, and we did pretty much everything without hardware at the beginning, and this is how we speed up the process. Even our design team did the design of the vehicle without any hardware, just with goggles and virtual reality. And this is why we could make decisions on the design exterior and the interior in about 10 weeks. 10 weeks,
wow,
not
10 weeks.
months. That usually takes, in a traditional OEM, at least a year. And this is how we save time. And the other thing is we did run lots of simulation tests for the powertrain, the battery management, thermal management on the computer. And this is a huge advantage we have here in the US, especially if you start from scratch and you don't have any heritage, you don't have to hide anything.
And crash testing as well, I presume, has also been happening in simulation.
Of course, crash testing is the same thing. So this starts a bit later because you have to have a design for the body and the skateboard. And after that is designed on the computer, you start doing crash simulation as well. So this is something that has been developed over the last 10 years in the auto industry and is more sophisticated, I would say, every month. So the prediction of a crash simulation is pretty close to reality. So therefore, we rely a lot on simulation, but of course, you have to do physical crash tests. And the good thing is that we really made it happen within 19 months from starting the company to a full running prototype, what we call a beta car.
Oh, yeah.
That is quite impressive. And with these beta cars that are currently being produced in Michigan, we will perform all the physical tests, including, of course, the crash tests.
That's great. So 19 months from design to the beta car, which you're testing currently, what's the timeline look from here in terms of rolling these things out, actually getting them into production and getting them onto the roads?
Yeah, you know, we are not shortcutting any testing. So this is definitely something we saved time at the beginning with using virtual reality and simulation, but now we are in the testing period. Of course, you have to perform winter tests, so this is why we needed the cars to be ready prior to the winter.
Michigan, so you're in a good
Michigan
position
is
for
the
that.
right place to do that, actually today already. And summer testing and hot climate testing we are doing, and of course the crash performance. And we are planning to launch this vehicle in the third quarter of 2021.
Okay, so we still got a little bit of time left before you'll be able to subscribe to services. Actually, I wanted to ask you about the design side of things. You mentioned using virtual reality exclusively. I'm sure that you've looked at concept cars before as bucks and production models sculpted from clay and that kind of thing. How much of an adjustment was it for you to only see this car in virtual reality and basically to kind of approve the high-level design? Was that difficult for you?
It is maybe a bit difficult for me because I'm a bit older and a bit longer in the auto industry because I'm used to work with hardware. But for our younger guys and our designers, it was not a big problem because they are used to do that every day. Some of our design team, they designed their whole life EVs. They did not have to unlearn anything. So they are used to have these tools. And it turned out to be pretty good what they did.
Yes. We're getting close to Q&A time, so we'll get those questions ready. Obviously, we've got a lot of testing between now and release and crash testing, environmental testing, things like that. What other major hurdles does Canoo have to overcome between now and then? Any financing concerns, anything like that needs to be addressed before this rolls out?
There are always a couple of things that our test engineers will figure out, of course. Mm-hmm. But right now, I have to say, so we did already do some component tests, hardware tests, of course. So you do that, you go with a component, then with a subsystem, then a complete system, the cabin, the skateboard, and then finally, you do the test with the complete vehicle. So far, these prototypes that are on the road, they pretty much mirror our simulation results, but you never know. But for right now, there are no major roadblocks.
We're launching in cities individually to begin with, and I'm guessing this is largely intended for use within cities. I could be wrong, but that doesn't look particularly aerodynamic for long highway stretches, that kind of thing. Will we see maybe a future model that would be more intended for longer range drives?
The thing is, our design, our architecture is based on the skateboard, what we call our foundation. So there's a rolling chassis that incorporates pretty much the whole powertrain, the battery, the suspension. So there is actually no need to attach a cabin to the skateboard. The skateboard is self-contained. It even houses the HVAC, so the heating and the cooling of the vehicle. And it's pretty easy at low development costs to put another cabin on top of the skateboard. We actually put the wheelbase at about 2,850 millimeters, which we think is the sweet spot for 75% of all cars that are out there. So you can easily put a lower cabin on top of it, or I don't know, an SUV or a pickup. But in our case, a lower cabin, more aerodynamically refined, would definitely end up with a higher range.
And how would you classify the competition for this car? Because as you mentioned, it's not exactly an SUV. It's kind of a van, but it's also very different from a traditional van. What would you say would be the competition of this car?
Right now, we have to say there is no real competition out there. There might be in the future, but for right now, it is a car that is really huge from inside and small from the outside, because we did some architectural, we implemented some architectural features into the car to make that happen. Right now, we think we are pretty alone in a positive way with that car, and we think that gives us also a huge advantage when we launch the car in 21.
Yeah, green fields are exactly what investors like to see, so that's good news. Let's go ahead and turn it over to you. Does anybody have any questions for Ulrich here about Canoo, about the car, about the subscription service, about the environment and the economy that's going to be driving into? I think we've got a question up front here. The microphone is coming at you.
Thank you. It's a very exciting and impressive vehicle. Just a quick question. What speed does it charge at? What's the maximum charging speed of the 80 kilowatt?
So the onboard charger is designed for 125 kilowatts. So that means it will charge the battery to 80% below 30 minutes. 28 minutes to be precise.
28 minutes, all right, good. And range, 250 miles?
And the range, so we have, the car comes with two battery dimensions. The big one is 80 kilowatt hours because it fits nicely between the front and the rear axle. And the range will be 250 miles. And as you can imagine, this shape of the vehicle, it's maybe not the best aerodynamic shape. So the 250 miles is a realistic mileage we will achieve with 80 kilowatt hours. If you put a more aerodynamically refined top hat or cabin on top of it, 300 miles and plus should be easy to achieve.
Who's next? What's next question? Anybody? Back there.
First, I just want to say excellent job to the moderator. You've been really outstanding.
Thank you.
For the Canoo, my question is about, first, the subscription model. Is it intended as long-term subscription, which is kind of analogous to a lease, or is it short-duration subscriptions where you would use the vehicle intermittently? And related to that, can you comment on about the potential use for including families with small children in the vehicle and car seat connectivity and the ability to safely transport with, latch equivalent type of seating restraint systems for children?
Yes, for your first question, so there's actually no time limit. You can keep the car as long as you want. So there's no time limit for the subscription. So that makes it, we think, also much easier for people that are still hesitant to sign a 36 months lease contract for an EV because they don't know about charging infrastructure, they don't know about range. So this is not a problem with our subscription model. And when it comes to child seats, and you can see the car, we open the door later and you have the chance to look at the interior. Of course, the interior will be equipped with ISOFIX and all the features that are in current cars. The thing is, in our car, even much easier. You open the door and you drive with the stroller directly into the vehicle because it has that much room that you don't have to disassemble something. You just take the gear, whatever you want to have, into the vehicle. No need to disassemble anything of the things you usually carry in a car.
And on the subscription side, there's no fixed term, but there is an upfront charge, right, to begin the process. So that it would be basically incentivized to continue for at least a few months anyway, right?
We did not disclose on any
Okay.
charge at all. So we will do that if we come closer to the start of production.
Great.
So right now we are calculating different models, and it's for us a bit too early to give you a final price.
Understood. Great. Next question. Yeah.
You mentioned at the beginning that the car isn't being designed for high-level autonomy from day one. I wonder what the timeline is for implementation of autonomy.
That's the big question for everybody here at the show.
And you know, if you have the right people, you have to make sure that the vehicle architecture, the basic physical boardnet architecture, is designed in a way that it is ready to be upgraded. And so we design all our body controllers and domain controllers in-house. So that means we are offering everything that is necessary in the car already today. And I mentioned the steer-by-wire as one of the features that is needed to go full autonomy. The other thing is you need redundancy with power supply. If you remove the steering wheel and if there's no mechanical connection, the other thing is you have to have the process power and the process speed to manage all the signals in the vehicle. And in our case, right from the start, we divided our boardnet architecture into 3 different levels, to put it simple. So there's the first level is infotainment, like music and navigation. The third level is autonomous driving. The second level would be autonomous driving. In between these 2 levels, there's a firewall. And then when it comes to driving, steering, and braking, this is the most secure level. This is our 3rd level. And this is how we designed the physical boardnet. And we develop the software and everything in-house to make sure that this works and it is ready for autonomous driving.
Great. We've got time for one more short question, if we have one more short question. Right up front here. Oh, uh-oh, did the mic go away? We lost the microphone. If you speak loudly, I should be able to hear you. Oh, wait, no, go back there. Sorry, okay, there we go. I see you.
Test.
You're on.
You mentioned early on affordability. How do you define affordability?
Yeah, affordability is that you will be surprised with the monthly fee you pay. In a positive way, that you think, okay, you really get a great car for a very affordable monthly payment, and taking in consideration that we are trying to put into your monthly fee more than just the payment. We do the maintenance, we do the service, we also do the licensing, going to the DMV. We also are talking about including insurance and making sure that you have easy access to all charging infrastructure that is out there. So this all comes in the one package. And to make it really realistic with a low monthly fee, this is why we wanted to keep the cars on our books, depreciate the cars over a longer period of time, that no dealership, that all is a big cost saving for us. Half of it, I would say, we give back to the customer in reducing the monthly fee. The other half, we need to offset the high battery costs because we don't believe that the battery costs come down over the next 5 to 6 years.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Ulrich. On behalf of the entire team at AutoMobility LA, thank you very much for being with us.